welcome to the Thursday, November 1st, 2018 of the Tree Advisory Commission. My name is Tom Romaine. I'll be chairing this meeting in the absence of our chairperson, and would the members of the Advisory Commission please introduce themselves?
Lisa Langer, Commissioner.
Scott Sparlin, Commissioner.
And advisory members.
Tom Schmitz, Park and Recreation Director.
Derek Nelson, Public Utilities.
Thank you. We need to amend and then approve the November 1st, 2018 agenda. Is there anybody who would like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
The agenda's been, has a motion to approve and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And then we need to move on to amend the July 19th adjourned minutes. No meeting was held in September. I would entertain a motion to approve the July 19th adjourned minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the motion carries. Moving on to old business. Is there anybody prepared to review the tree reimbursement programs in the absence of City Engineer Kohler? Okay, then let's move on to the,
Well, I think we can just bring it up.
All right.
Chair, acting chair, and commissioners. It's page 4 of the packet of 16 pages. So let's take a quick look at the program there. It appears that's a list of trees, 23 planted so far this year, at a total cost of $4,100 and a total reimbursement of approximately $2,500, along with the various species. And then lower on that page 4 is kind of the, in the following page is some budget information. It appears we have a balance of about $1,300 to the end of this year. 6,000 budget, 4,700 spent. Well, that doesn't quite include the carryover. We still have that carryover from last year. So it appears there's more like 2,600 available for the rest of this year.
you know, if there's any anticipated reimbursements to come yet?
I don't know for certain, but I would think it's possible. That paperwork just hasn't been completed yet. Residents have to apply ahead of time and then actually do the planting, pay the bill, and then bring that paperwork evidence to City Hall in order to trigger a reimbursement check being cut. So that certainly could be some more coming in. But other than that, I'm not certain about other outstanding invoices yet to come in.
When we have a money in the bank, so to speak, instead of carrying that money over, is there a way we could use what's left and purchase more trees and get those in the ground? I realize it's late in the season now, but if we don't use the money in our budget, I don't want to lose the money. So is this the time to discuss that, or is this not?
Well, I think it's possible, certainly something that you can discuss. It is funds that are earmarked for the commission and the commission's efforts. Trying to purchase some more trees this year and get them in the ground could be a challenge. All the contractors I'm aware of are busy, and staff is frantically busy with their work. But anything may be possible.
I was reading further through through some of Shane's things that he'd
Mhm.
written up. And in there, he talked about ordering trees in the fall for spring. And would that be an option if there's money left to get the order through and have those trees available? And they would be planted in the spring, but with this year's money.
Yes, that's certainly a possibility, is to, create a purchase agreement, to purchase order with 2018 funds, and then that money would need to be carried over and paid with an invoice next year. So that's a possibility.
What, Mr. President, what does the, and Advisor Schmitz, what becomes of the balance amount? I mean, does the entire balance amount, the 2006-59-29, does that get carried over into next fiscal year, or do we just lose it?
That's a great question, Commissioner Sparlin. It would certainly stay in the general fund, the administration general fund, where it comes out of here at City Hall, unless a carryover is requested and granted. That normally takes place in February.
In the past years, we've asked for that to be added to the next year's budget, and we've been successful in getting that.
Correct, correct,
That's the other option we have, instead
Yes.
of buying something right off the
yes.
spend. We don't have to necessarily spend the money before the end of the year in the fear of losing it.
Right. Well, that's good. The only thing I would suggest then is, if it's earmarked for trees, I mean, if that's what we want to earmark it for, there is often sales this time of year. And if you commit the money and make the sale now, you can probably save some dollars on purchasing, to be delivered in the spring. But another way we could do that, is there some type of potential for education purposes with the greater public, that we could use that money to, potentially send something out to the households about, something that we want them to consider that has to do with tree care, or, something.
Certainly, marketing and promotion. I don't know if there's any open months left with the utility billing stuffer that
Right.
takes money to print that.
I was even thinking for advertising in the newspaper.
Correct. There would be avenues to spend money on newspaper and radio ads also.
I mean, with the coming Emerald Ash Borer and things like that, we do have plenty to talk about. So I don't know. But I think
Perhaps
there's,
what we should do is have
two
that
options.
discussion when we get to new business.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And then
Right.
we'll move through old
Okay.
business and get into new
Yeah,
business. and
perfect.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
we might wind up having the meeting turn into the typical
Yep,
Coast Guard Auxiliary stream of unconsciousness meeting.
got it.
Derek, are you prepared to talk about the PUC reimbursements, excuse me?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I had a note here that wasn't attached to what is in the agenda, but it has to do referring to what we kind of just were talking about, the billing, 2019 billing stuffer. So this year is, set in stone for the next couple months. A reminder that April and August of next year is this commission's opportunity to put something in the bill stuffer. As of when I received what's going to be in each month from the finance department, there were 4 open months yet, and they were January, February, May, and then of course December, end of December. If there was something you wanted to get printed to put in the January bill for whatever reason, something you can think of and discuss, obviously. Going to what is budget-wise. So this past year, we had budgeted $3,000, which has been consistent since this was conceived, as far as I can tell. And we have exceeded the $3,000 And I do not believe I have any applications on my desk, but as Director Schmitz mentioned, there may be some coming in yet. The deadline is actually today to get the trees planted to get a rebate, so there could possibly be a few more coming in, but I don't foresee many more. 2018 budget, $3,000, just like every other year. Past spending out of my budget for what's called Power Fax ads. They're in the shopper and in the journal. There's a few, September and October, and then the design fee for that ad for $164.50 that was spent. And of course, the spring PUC newsletter also had tree rebate information in it, which doesn't get subtracted from my account. It comes from somewhere else. So we've totaled, so far we have 50 trees that have been rebated throughout the whole year. There's a little bit of a, when I'm putting this into PDF, some things got shifted, and on that left column it says that 53 trees were rebated, and actually it was 50, and then there's one in here where I didn't include the labor, which is also reimbursed when somebody gets a tree, the tree and the labor, not tax, but tree and labor. Yeah, so we had 13 trees rebated in October, 2 so far in November, and I think September we had 23 to 26 trees rebated. So last 3 months, excuse me, have been heavy rebates coming in. That's where a majority of the rebates occurred.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I would have a question. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Do you, I mean, the two programs that the PUC offers are basically related to the relief are shade trees, or windbreaks.
Yep.
Do you have, is that broken out here at all, about how many were windbreaks and how many were shade trees?
No. The windbreaks, just looking at this, would probably more or less be like maybe the cedars.
The conifers, yeah.
Correct, because they're not really rebate.
Yeah.
For shade, they're not. We don't really rebate for them. But those trees, for instance, were blocking air conditioner units for them. Actually, all of them were.
I'm just kind of curious, over the past few years, what the percentage of shade tree versus windbreak percentage-wise is. I'm just curious. I know I've utilized this program extensively in the past, and I've done windbreaks quite often. Although at our previous residence, I used shade tree or boulevard reemplacements. Yeah, that would have been the city program, as opposed to the PUC program. But
Yeah. Well, it's a breakdown that can easily be done for next meeting.
Well, out of this batch for this year, there's 11 of 50 trees are either arborvitae or eastern red cedar. So
okay.
that's just a quick and dirty guess on how many things might have been.
20%,
Yeah, close.
approximately. Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Nelson?
No, that is all.
Okay, buckthorn removal volunteer update. Ellen Van Cura is not here. Has anybody heard from Ellen as to?
I have Acting Chair Romaine and Commissioners. Just this week, I met with Ellen, and she and her helper, Brenda Longworth, are still working diligently, mainly on the south end of the bike trail. Like from now, they're between 7th and 12th south on the recreational trail, removing lots of buckthorn, and they're continuing to work hard and planning to work through the winter also. And I know one thing that she's talked a lot about is looking for more help. So there's plenty of room, plenty of opportunity for volunteers or anyone interested in helping eradicate buckthorn. They should contact Ellen Van Cura or myself at the Park and Rec office. Tools are still available. The weed wrenches are available for free loan out of the Recreation Center, a free borrowing program. And Alan's always available to assist with advice or, actual removal efforts. So greatly appreciate her efforts, and it's really a year-round program for her. She does work in the winter as long as the snow doesn't get too deep.
Yeah, I would reinforce your statement about working between 7th and 12th South. It's a real buckthorn heaven down there,
Mm-hmm.
remembering from when I lived on South German Street.
Yeah, and this time of year, November, is probably the best time of the year, the best month of the year to eradicate buckthorn. It's kind of the only green leaf left on the stem. It really sticks out like a sore thumb, and cutting it at the base and herbiciding that stump is the way to really make some headway this time of year. So it's a great month to work on buckthorn of November.
Okay, any questions on buckthorn removal? Okay. Moving on to the Green Corps report, Mr. Schmitz again.
Thank you. What I would mention here is Shane Omersa, as we all know, has gone. The year 2 of the Green Corps program has ended. His final report for the community is here. So I would recommend that you take some time to read through that and formulate any recommendations you might have to forward on to staff or the city council. So I don't have anything special to report about his final documents. But the other 2 items I can report on is the tree plantings. You know, we utilized the gravel bed at the Park and Recreation Shop for the 2nd year in a row. It was very successful. 30 or 40 trees, bare root trees we procure in the spring, put them in the gravel bed all summer, and this is the time of year they get planted. So Park and Recreation staff, along with consultant Mark Schnobreck, are planning to get those in the ground here soon if they haven't been put in the ground already. We're focusing on the north end of the trail, kind of reforestating the north end of the trail. That was the August Shell Brewery Fire Brick Forest effort. So a lot of trees are going to be going on the north end of the trail out of that group. So that's kind of the status of the tree planting for this year, the end of it. And then I think you realize this out of previous information, but our DNR grant application for EAB funding was denied. So there were many cities that applied, and including New Ulm, and New Ulm was not awarded that EAB grant from the DNR. So those are 2 things I wanted to report related to Green Corps.
Questions for Mr. Schmitz?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson, utility bill stuffer, mailing, flyers, anything more to report other than the discussion?
Just same as it is what I had mentioned earlier. April and August 2019 are the Tree Advisory Commission's months, and the months January, February, May, and December are as of now are open. So if there's something additional, or like what happened this last year, we wanted to kind of move our stuffer to a different month. There might be that possibility if we act on it soon enough.
So we've got January and February, and what was that again, Mr. Nelson?
May and December. January, February, May, and December.
Those 4 months are available,
Yes.
and we've already got ourselves booked into
April
and
and
August.
Correct.
So,
As far as I know, those other months have not been filled,
mm-hmm,
unless something's happened within the last few days or week.
mm-hmm.
So-
So one opportunity for the commission may possibly be to maybe jump on that January month and have the printing, completed in December to utilize some of your 2018
I would-
funding.
I would think January or February would be good for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You mean to put something out in addition to the other 2?
Well, Commissioner Sparlin was interested in getting some educational material out and earlier than April, and that certainly would give us an opportunity in January and February to get in the PUC billing.
I just think that might be a waste. I think in January and February, people aren't thinking trees so much. I don't know. I don't think they are.
Well, you know,
It's not this
just a thought. We
planting
can come
time.
back to it in new business.
Yeah, I don't think people think about trees in January and February either.
Putting small parts of trees into the stove, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Okay, well, let's come back to that new business. Big Tree Contest 2018. Mr. Schmitz?
What I know about that is a winner has been declared, and I'm not quite certain if the winner has planted a tree yet and received the reimbursement. That's kind of handled through the engineering department. But I also know that some years, the winner doesn't quite get that completed in that calendar year. And we've been able to have, last year's winner plant the tree next year and still get reimbursed. So I would say that hopefully by our next meeting in January, we have information about the 2018 winner and whether a tree was planted and reimbursement took place. So we'll look into that. The other thing I'd like the commission to consider is your thoughts for 2019, and if you want to continue the program, maybe trying to decide upon a species.
Okay, there, I noticed in the packet when I went through it real quickly.
Age 15 of 16.
Okay. There's some suggested future big tree species, and
And the past species.
I would put in a plug for catalpa. That's a pretty showy tree at the time that we're with the big white blossoms on it. That might be an easy one for people to identify. I don't know how many are planted in the city. It's not a native species, but
I don't have a problem with catalpa. I wanted to go back, though, onto the 2018 winner. If possible, if we could get some publicity through the journal with, this is the tree that won. And, I think that really helps build awareness. It's free advertising. And it might help us get more participants in the future.
Yes, I'll check with the engineering department and see where we're at with that, and we certainly do publicize the winner normally.
But I'd give us, I would support a catalpa tree being.
okay. I can't make a motion on the chair.
Well, I will make a motion that the catalpa tree be our 2019 big tree species.
Ball's in your park.
Yeah, I see that. I hear that. I'm a little reluctant because of the lack of commissioners here today. And I don't know how under the gun are we to make that decision right now?
I would say it's not urgently, it's not urgent to be
No.
made at this meeting, but it is up to the commission.
And we could do it, I understand that. I just, I'm reluctant because of the lack of commissioners here today. We have a quorum, but it'd be nice to have a full
Generally,
to make that kind of a decision.
generally there are 3 commissioners at the meetings, so.
Well, that's true.
Okay, the motion dies for lack of a second at this time, and we'll revisit this later on in the year.
Perfect.
Thank you. Home Show is coming up on March 22nd to the 24th of 2019. Do we wish to have a booth at the Home Show, which is a splendid opportunity for public education?
I think the home show booth is always a good place to talk to people about trees or their concerns. I know in the past it's been difficult to staff it, and this year we won't have Shane, who's filled in a lot of holes. So with that being said, I guess I'd like to do it, but hoping we get some participation from commission members. I would be willing to work some of it.
Okay, well, I would entertain a motion for us to participate in the home show for March 22nd through the 24th.
I would move that.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Oh,
Is
I
there
was a second. Yes, I'll
Okay,
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I would second that thought about it's a labor-intensive operation. We should encourage people to take part. Okay, can we move on to new business? All right, commissioner's terms, only one to expire, and that's Tom Romaine. And he is eligible to serve 2 more full 3-year terms. That almost sounds like a sentence. And with no time off for good behavior. We all serve at the pleasure of the mayor, and
Correct.
there is a mayoral election coming up, so at this point, I would say to people that I am willing to serve another term, but we'll see what the incoming mayor has to say.
Okay.
So, can we move on to the discussion from the May 3rd meeting? What's going to happen when Emerald Ash Borer arrives in New Ulm? And I think, as Commissioner Sparlin mentioned earlier, we have time to prepare now, so what will we do to prepare for that? And that kind of segues into what do we want to do with the Emerald Ash Borer plan that Shane Omersa wrote for us.
Right.
So we had recommended to the city council, I thought, in the July meeting, that they accept that plan. Was that presented as council?
Yes, they have adopted the plan. The city council has adopted the AAB preparedness plan. So one suggestion might be for the commissioners to review that and maybe take out a little piece at each meeting to discuss and talk about anything that we really should be focusing on in year 1 or year 2, or any efforts that you would like to move forward with specifically. The plan's adopted, the council's on board, but I do think that it's up to the commission to assist with making certain that the community and staff are moving forward with things that are in the plan, elements and components.
That was what part of that DNR grant was, to move into preparing for the coming of Emerald Ash Borer. But so that may be something that we should review, that grant proposal as well, and see how we can incorporate that in how we work with the Emerald Ash Borer preparedness and the entire plan. You know, we have the inventory,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're on the way of working in the parks management plan,
Mm-hmm.
replanning that's going on, so we have a start on
Yeah.
implementing the Emerald Ash Borer plan.
Mm-hmm. I think the public education component is key and very important, that we should really focus on that early and often. And then maybe we pick out 1 or 2 other items that you would like staff or the community to focus on in year 1, so to speak.
Okay. Perhaps my suggestion could be that we each as commissioners, and the commissioners that are unable to attend today, review that plan, and then at the January meeting, we have a discussion as to, or perhaps in between now and the January meeting, just have a discussion of, as a committee of the whole, with what's in the plan and what kind of pieces can we take out and move forward with.
Mr. Chair, I think that's a great idea, and I also think that it's a situation where if we have that plan out and we openly discuss some of the things, we can come to a focus of what how we want to, what we want to focus, or make the recommendation of focusing on is, okay? So it's one thing to have the plan, it's the other thing to start to implement it, and And that's what we're talking about, and that's gonna take some effort that we don't, we may not realize.
Yeah, and, time is of the essence on this because I haven't heard of any new outbreaks, but it's already in Scott County and it's already in Fairmont.
Right.
So
Right.
we're kind of
Yep.
right in between two places where emerald ash borer has been discovered. And as people say, if it's left alone, it moves 1/2 to 2 miles a year, and then if somebody moves a load of firewood, it moves about 60 miles an hour.
Yep.
So.
Exactly.
Okay, so then we'll have that discussion in the interim, or.
Mr. Chair, could we make sure that the minutes from this meeting reflect that's gonna be on the top,
An agenda item.
Okay.
top agenda item? Yeah, good.
All right. That sounds great to me. I don't think we need a motion to make that an
No.
agenda item. Okay, the next item here, Minnesota Green Corps member year is over. Who's going to take the lead? And that kind of segues items 2 and 3 underneath this portion of the agenda, kind of, actually, 2, 3, and 4 are all kind of wrapped together as to who's going to take those tasks over. And I know that at the end of the minutes, I believe, on the last meeting that we had underneath the EAB plan will be going to the city council. This is on page 3 of 16 under item 5, new business. We had some discussion about trying to, someone, were you, Mr. Schmitz, I can't recall who was to do this, but there was supposed to be a kind of a poll taken among the city departments that have some time that goes into forestry, urban forestry matters in the city, and how much staff time and how much budget. They were doing that with, perhaps we could pull this all together and have a person who was the focus of the urban forestry program in New Ulm.
Yes, Acting Chair Romaine and members. I do think that, a municipal forester is something that the commission has talked about for years. And I think for it to become, to fruition, is going to require, a concerted effort by the commission to bring this topic forward. And I think, as you've mentioned, working with departments and staff to try and determine, what the resources in the past have been for, with each department related to the urban forestry initiatives, and compiling that. And then, the first half of the year is the time to put this together and bring it to council, because come June, preparations begin for the following year's budget.
If I remember correctly, and anybody else jump in here, I think that City Engineer Kohler had said that he would kind of poll the other city departments. I'm not sure. And that's not reflected in the minutes, so
Not sure if I remember.
I guess we need to start that process again. So who would be the appropriate person to carry this to city department heads? Because the urban forestry here falls within Parks and Recreations, the PUC, and engineering. And streets has an interest in it as well.
I think the commission can just simply pass a motion or a resolution recommendation directed at the advisors to begin compiling this information.
I would entertain a motion to that end.
By that motion, do you mean Derek Nelson, Kurt Curry, and Steve Kohler would be the
Well,
people to?
I'm unsure as to who the appropriate person is. That's why had the discussion with Mr. Schmitz, so. Whether it's,
Well, Mr. Chair, we want a point person. We want a point person to deal with. We don't want to have to go through 3 people.
I'm not quite certain about actually the official protocol and how we would move forward with that. It could possibly,
This is one of the concerns I have with the tree commission is that there's no one entity that we can make recommendations to short of the city council. And I'm not sure that it's appropriate for us to advise the city council that we would like the city departments to give us an idea of how much staff time and how much budget dollars are going into forestry issues with the downstream intent perhaps of pulling this all together into one position.
That's what a forester's job is.
That's
Well-
that's what the person who.
Yeah, but for example, if Emerald Ash or when Emerald Ash Borer comes, who would be the lead?
Right.
Right.
And if we had a
Who's the
forester,
lead?
that would be the lead.
Who's
And-
the lead?
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Who's the appropriate person? We need to have that answer, and I'm with Commissioner Romaine. I don't, who is that? I mean,
what I recall is that it's been an initiative of the commission. The commission desires a municipal forester. And so that ultimate decision will be made by the city council, and the city council is gonna want a report, some information, some data related to substantiate that request or supposed need. So I think it's a matter of compiling a report or some information to
So if,
back up.
kind of harking back to the time that I spent on the Park and Rec Commission. The Park and Rec Commission, if they had a issue like this, then their city contact, city department contact would be you as the Park and Recreation Director.
Correct.
Because that's sort of a advisory commission to the city council, but also to the Park and Rec Department.
Correct.
So there's a staff connection there, but we're sort of, you're a connection, Mr. Nelson is a connection, City Engineer Kohler is a connection,
yeah, street department.
Street Commissioner Curry is
Yep.
another contact. So do we make the contact with all of those folks, or what's appropriate? That's my question. And I would like to put it in the form of a motion, but, so the information we want to collect in support of having a focus for city forestry programs is that the city is already spending money on urban forestry issues, but it's spending money in about 4 or 5 different places. And we might still spend the money in 4 or 5 different places, but
Right.
we need a unifying point person for forestry. Now, it might be somebody who's already employed by the city who takes on the forestry issue, or it might be a new position. I'm not certain of how that goes, but to go to the city council and ask that we create this position, we have to have some idea of the budget impact and the staff impact, and we can only find that out from the people that have that staff impact and have that budget impact at this point. So is that something the commission should be doing with the department heads, or one of the advisors to the tree advisory commission should be the point person for that? I'm at a loss here. And this might be more germane after we find out what the new, or the outcome of the mayoral election. So do we want to try and put this into the form of a motion, just to start the process?
Well,
and make it official?
Commissioner Romaine, and chairperson and commission and advisors,
Oh,
everybody. I would offer a motion that we have a description given to the tree commission of a person that could report to us on the items that we are seeking. So I guess my motion would be to ask the city council to appoint a person that can communicate with us about the 4 entities that we are seeking the information from. And that's a long motion. I'll see if I can, I don't know. So the motion would be to ask the city council to give us a point person. Okay? That would be our motion. So, officially, the motion is to request from the city council a point person to communicate with the tree commission as needed, I guess. Does that sound, is that enough explanation? Enough information?
Be a point person that is coordinating
With
the
those
4
4 entities. We're trying to get these 4 governmental units to agree on one person to communicate with us. Is that,
Sounds good to me.
okay, that's the motion then. That's my
I'll-
motion,
I'll second that.
okay?
Any discussion on the motion on the floor?
I think there's clarity.
Okay.
I think there's clarity.
How are we getting that to what's the process for getting the city?
Well, I just,
Well, that will come
once
from
there's a
these meetings.
motion, there's an opportunity to discuss it. And if there's no discussion, we'll just call the question.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a motion on the floor to request that the city council appoint a contact point for the tree commission to speak for the city entities involved in urban forestry.
Very good.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye?
Opposed, same sign.
Perfect. Well, if we can get that accomplished, we've did something today.
Huge.
Motion carries. And the next step would be
Yeah,
the discussion
exactly.
we had in May.
Exactly.
Okay,
And we can't do anything until we have that person.
that's correct. If we can accomplish that, it'll be
It'll be a big deal.
a good stroke.
Yep.
Okay. Any other items of new business? Do we want to discuss your public education issue?
You know, I'm perfectly fine. I think the point was brought up that people are not thinking trees so much in January and February, and that there's a lot to that. It may be that a more applicable time is the spring, obviously when everybody's planting and the trees are starting to bud, and so we may be best served by putting it out there when people actually have plant growth on their brains, so.
What about the unused balance budget?
I think we request, my advice would be to request to have it carried over.
Okay, that should probably be in the form of a motion.
Okay?
That could be done at the January meeting,
Could be.
yeah.
Good, okay.
Because we don't know yet what the amount
Well-
is and so on.
I'm fine with that, too.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's possibility that there could be an expenditure yet. so maybe we should leave it.
Yeah, no, departments normally request their carryovers in February.
Okay.
So it would be very appropriate for the
Okay.
commission to consider that
All right.
at their next meeting in January. And you have the calendar, the 2019 calendar in front of you there on the agenda also. Again, the first Monday of odd months, the first Thursday of odd months. And the only significant concern in 2019 would be the 4th of July is the first Thursday of July. But probably no action necessary now as far as the calendar goes.
So the 3rd of January is the next meeting.
January 3, yep.
Yeah, okay.
Good. I've got it on my calendar. There's something going on the week after that. Any other new items of new business?
The only thing that I would like to bring up, Commissioner Romaine, is the dormant agenda item of Center Street Hill tree and shrub plantings. Is there any updates on that at all, Mr. Schmitz?
I do not have any updates on that, no. It's still, well, actually, I think maybe one update would be Herman Heights, from Summit Avenue up. The city council and the mayor have appointed a retaining wall subcommittee, a slope subcommittee. So, at some point, I think there will be a decision made on the Herman Heights degraded limestone retaining walls and slope. And it might not be a bad idea to wait until that decision's been made and maybe project completed,
Okay,
unless you want to try and focus on something between Garden Street and Summit Avenue.
I think until that decision's made, it's probably prudent to leave it alone.
Yeah, it's on the dormant agenda item
Yeah,
list.
I just thought there might be something I didn't know about.
Other items of new business? If my fellow commissioners don't have one, I have one. And that would be, if we look at the last item, or not the last item, but following adjournment in our agenda, it says, please forward agenda items to Sue Body at the Park and Rec Administration Office, not later than a week prior to the meeting. And since we have put ourselves in the position of having to review the Emerald Ash Borer plan, we should probably, let's see, December is kind of busy with Christmas, but perhaps by the 14th, if we have some agenda items, we should probably have a discussion amongst ourselves as to what we think about the EAB plan, and if we have items we want to put on the agenda for January 4th, January 3rd, we should probably firm that up not later than December 14th.
Right.
I have no other items of new business. So once again, I'll ask for items of new business. Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
You are adjourned. Thank you.